Well, you have finally got here. You are listening to the Erskine Music Podcast. Here, by popular demand, we discuss life, culture, Christ, and of course, music. These half-hour broadcasts are perfect for a commute, coffee time, chat, or any other gap in your schedule where you want to put great content. So without further ado, let's join the conversation today, already in progress.
There he is.
Live from Litchfield.
Live from Litchfield. Well, good morning, sir. I'm glad that you're back at it. We're back at it. And this is a good topic for today. Why are we at this moment?
I think it's because I've been just paying attention to our time, right? And we have the whole mantra, "Make America Great Again," right? And there's
some people have that mantra now.
Yeah. There's a
people who watch the show don't have that mantra. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, and this idea of making America great again means that at some point America is not, or at least it's perceived America is not where it should be, right? And that we need to get back to what we were.
Okay.
Well, if you pay attention to history, if you pay attention just a little bit, I was first introduced to this in college. This idea that there are stages to collapse. There are stages to the nation's downfall, whether it's revolution or economic collapse or whatever like that, anything like that. And it's just, I found it interesting that there's a pattern that if you look across these empires and these countries who were superpowers or close to being superpowers, that they all go through the same thing. Like it's the same thing. And then when you look at that pattern and you maybe start looking through that lens in America, I don't know, like you start to kind of wonder, like,
that gets us to an interesting discussion.
It does. I think it's a very interesting discussion. And then I think it's a great discussion for the church to have, because I wonder if a lot of our people are recognizing some of the stages in these patterns and realizing that, man, we're in a tough way. And so what does the church, what does the Bible tell you? And how do we look at this? And how do we keep ourselves from becoming so fearful that we join a revolution versus seeking reform? You know what I'm saying? Because things can get violent real fast if we're not about the kingdom of God. And I think there's some, prime examples from that we'll probably look at a little bit today. France, Russia, where things has got, France in particular. I mean, the blood was just flowing in France. So it was
welcome to an episode where we talk about the blood flowing in France.
Yes. So I think this is a worthy topic, because I think the church needs to hear a word of encouragement. At the same time, we need to recognize that there's some things happening that, man, we definitely need to be about the kingdom. For our country's sake, we need to be about the kingdom. So I don't know. I think it'd be kind of fascinating.
Oh, that's all you, right. Jason.
Pastor Jason needs to.
Yeah, you, Bishop. Get it.
Bishop. Father, we thank you so much for this time. We just ask your blessing upon the show and your blessing upon our discussion. Help us to be truthful and wise and encouraging. And help us, Lord, to speak well for the church's sake and for your name's sake. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Our top story for today: the collapse and decline of America. Are we following a pattern? Let's just kick this off with the video, because I think that that's in the show notes for today. I wanted to just show a little bit of the video and just say that we're moving down this gradation. And I've tried to hammer that out here so that people begin to see what this gradation is: military overextension, economic stagnation, currency collapse, loss of empire, complete collapse, alternative currencies, and then the end. Before we get to the video, I should say, Jason, there's a different list that you were looking at and that you were discussing prior to us coming on the air. And what does your list look like?
So The way the way I've kind of been taught to look at it, I guess, and now that I look into it a little more, there's actually quite a few things out there. But
Hmm.
this is kind of how I've been looking at it. First of all, there is an extreme wealth inequality gap somewhere between the haves and have-nots. So it's like it's the elites and the little. So the country is wealthy, but only like 1% or 10% of the country actually enjoys that wealth. The rest of us are kind of struggling for it. There is a middle class. It's just not nearly close to what the wealthy is. Two, then you've got the problem of government corruption and incompetence.
Okay.
And so if you start to look at these governments that experienced revolution, like in France and in Russia and Cuba and Britain and Spain and the whole slew of them, the government's corrupt. There's a number that the government goes up to percentage, and the higher that number is, the more corrupt the government is, which
Now
is
you
going to lead to a loss of trust in the government. There's also this incompetence,
hang
weak
on,
leaders who are.
hang on for just a second. Clarification on that last point when you were talking about percentage of the government. You
Well,
talking about the
yeah,
expansion of government?
no, it's a corruption number. I'm trying to think of the formula for it. Every government's got a corruption indicator, like how corrupt. By the way, every government is corrupt, just so you know.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Right?
we can agree upon that. We can agree
Yes,
upon that.
the fall of
In a
man has
fallen world,
ensured
yeah.
that every government is corrupt. Now, just how much corruption are you dealing with? That's determines on how successful your country can be. I want to say that the countries in like Africa and South America got these astronomical corruption rates, but the United States is not like leading the pack in integrity. I think we're somewhere in the high middle.
I'm
But
wondering
you
who the
have this,
least corrupt government in the world is. It begs the
yes,
question from
yeah,
your
yeah,
research.
right. And so, but you also have these weak and indecisive leaders.
Israel.
You have people who lack courage and conviction. They lack valor. They lack wisdom. They really don't know what they're doing, and then they usually succumb to outside forces. They're not really looking out for their people. They're looking out for things outside of us. You have a middle class. The third thing is you have a middle class that either gets destroyed or becomes radicalized because they're discontent with what's going on. And so when you listen to like even Fox News and CNN and all these guys, and they're talking about the middle class, that's because stage three, if the middle class goes, the whole thing goes to crap fast. And so if you're shrinking your middle class, or if you're destroying your middle class, or your middle class has become radicalized, then you've got real problems. Then you have not verse four, pastor right there. You have stage four, where you have a loss of trust in the institution. Your government institutions lack integrity because they're corrupt. They're only working for themselves and you really don't believe, and then you have a loss of sense of justice. Things are not done well, they're not done right. And so you don't trust the authority, you don't trust those who coming up with
Uh-oh.
the laws and the economics of things. So then you have in stage five, this revolution movement begins to become popular by the masses. So usually your middle class are your more supposed to be your more reasonable kind of folk who aren't for that kind of thing.
Right.
And so all of a sudden they become disenchanted and the movement grows. And then of course, when you get to stage six, the government is overthrown and everything is thrown into chaos. And typically what happens is something bad, not good. Like it's not like you have this revolution that puts a better government in place. You have a temporary kind of government that comes into place that promises big but doesn't deliver, and then it has to go towards tyranny. And
Yeah.
and that's the model I'm more familiar with
Okay.
than what you were saying.
Okay.
Now what you were saying makes sense, but that's the model that I'm kind of
It's more of an economic model.
a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
but a couple of things that I wanted to say before we dive into the subject matter is that you and I both, as we were preparing for this, we're not rooting for the downfall of America. I want to make sure that people understand that we're doing this from a standpoint of concern, not
Yeah,
fear mongering, but a
right.
concern that we have some healthy discussions about these things. And then as believers, how we should live out our faith in a culture that is having these similar discussions.
And these problems that I think are noticeable. I mean, everything I mentioned, I think somebody who's listening could probably say, "Ooh, I kind of see that maybe."
Is Andrew Peterson watching this today? Do you feel the world is broken? Well, we do.
We do. Well, that certainly gives a sense of why people enjoy this show. Very engaging, very heartfelt. We will return to the conversation in a few moments, but first, let's thank our sponsors, Life Action Ministries, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you for all your awesome support. And Holt International. Thanks so much to our partners who make such a difference.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, I'm Dawn.
And I'm Steve of Dynasty Plus. We're a podcast, and if you've not checked it out, I hope you'll do that. You can visit our website. It is donandsteveplus.com, or you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
We do hope that you'll be able to join us, even as you continue to follow Erskine Music. Erskine does such a great job of bringing out topics. They're not all easy.
Right. I love that he'll tackle just about any topic.
He will tackle any topic and invite you to the conversation, which is always a plus because learning the art of conversation, well, it's much needed.
It certainly is. And he does a great job with those conversations. So, Erskine, thanks for doing that. Thanks for tackling those tough topics. And thanks for listening to the Erskine Music Show.
All right, let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed from internal economic failure. The pattern played out again. Overextension, currency failure, debt, loss of empire, collapse. And here's what should keep you awake at night. The United States is following the exact same pattern. Stage by stage, let me show you. Stage 1, military overextension. The United States has over 750 military bases in 80 countries. We have troops in 150 countries. We're committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, fighting in the Middle East, countering China, countering Russia. Our military budget is $850 billion annually, more than the next 10 countries combined. And it's not enough. We're stretched thin, equipment is aging, recruitment is down, and we have commitments we can't fulfill.
Well, that's not entirely true.
All right. Hit him up. Hit him up.
Yeah. So
we a little punchy on this show. So if we hear something that doesn't make sense, we're going to say that doesn't make sense. Come on, let's go.
Recruitment is now at an all-time high. When President Biden was in office, it did hit the low. I mean, it was bad. I'll have to say that now they're hitting record numbers and getting recruitment. Our budget for our military is big, but in comparison to our GDP, it's probably, I mean, it's a little more than most countries will spend on their military, but at the same time, we have the largest economy in the world, and the rebuttal to that is, well, as long as the money's coming in, we're good, right? But having that presence, one would argue, having that presence in those 80 countries is what helps us maintain our economy, because we're keeping trade routes open, we're keeping diplomacy going, we're trying to limit the amount of corruption that's going around the world, and I know there's another side who's ready to pounce on that and say we have no business being. I totally I hear the argument, but I can
heard it before anybody even said it.
I'm sorry.
I said you heard that before anybody even said it.
Yeah. I mean, but I can tell you what he's saying here is kind of true, but it's not. I don't think it's completely on point. Like it's, yes, we're extended, and yes, that we could probably pull some of it back, but I don't think we're stretched so thin that we can't handle what's coming right now. Now if the economy begins to collapse and our recruitment is down the way where it's been, maybe, but this video is, I think, fairly recent, so I think his numbers could be updated.
So here's something that I feel like happens because I've heard several of these discussions over the years about, what stage are we at? I think there was a eschatological part of this in the Bible where people were taking this and they were saying, these are the trumpets that are being sounded, and this is the trumpet that we're on right now. And there was that big movement there for a while, and it was kind of, dispensational theology and other things that were going on out there. So this discussion has been around for a while, but one of the things that I don't necessarily love about this kind of discussion, although I think overall the discussion is helpful and creates opportunities for us, but I don't love it when this discussion becomes, well, Jason just said that because we are not overextended in terms of we're extended, but not overextended because we do have the resources and the GDP to be able to substantiate all the different places where we're at. People breathe a sigh of relief and go, man, we're not even at stage 1 yet. So we're good.
Yeah, that's not true either.
I think we're going to go a different direction on that.
Yeah.
I don't want you to, sit back in your chair and think, oh man, we're
Yeah,
good. Like I
I
can't even see that we're at stage one. And so happy times are here again.
my my rebuttal to him is not entirely that he's wrong. He's painting a pretty dire picture, and I'm not sure we're at that dire point, but I see where he's coming from. Does that make sense? Like I know what he's
Sure.
saying. I'm just not quite sure I am where you got to understand our military. For all things considered, our military is outstanding. I mean, it is it is a phenomenal force right now in the world. Um, and if you think that anybody's even close to what we have for military, not even China's not even close,
Mm,
not Russia, nobody's close to what we have. We are just that dominant right now in the military side of things, and our technology, our what we invest in our military to keep America safe, the recruitment, it's phenomenal. Now, you got to keep that in mind as you go through the next two stages, because every example that he's probably going to use, whether it's Spain or Britain or France or Russia,
Russia.
all of them had a magnificent military. I mean, the sun never set on the British Empire. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how confident they were in their military. But right now we are a force to be reckoned with around the world. Our aircraft carriers alone do things that most nations can't do.
Mm.
So
All right.
just
Well,
food
you've
for
heard it
thought.
from Jason.
Yeah.
In summation of point number one that he's talking about, they not like us, and so
Yeah.
we're going to keep rolling here.
If China invades Taiwan, if Russia pushes into NATO territory, if Iran closes the Persian Gulf, we can't respond to all of it simultaneously. We're overextended. Just like Spain, just like Britain, just like the USSR. Check. Stage 2, currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window.
Spelled wrong.
The dollar became pure fiat currency. Since 2000, the money supply has increased 400%. Since 2020, we've printed over $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. We're not mixing copper into silver coins. We're just printing unlimited paper. The mechanism is different. The result is the same. Debasement. Check.
Well,
All right. Before we check that,
yeah, that's a
Let's check it.
problem, because Nixon, shall I say, nixed the gold standard for the U.S. and made paper money the fiat currency. All your money's got to be backed by something valuable, right?
something
You
about
got to
actual
have.
value.
So what America's money is backed by is the good, faithful credit of America. So as long as America is the guy, I guess you can trust our currency. But when you don't have anything really backing it up, I think there was a time when like our money used to be like made like from silver, like most of it was silver, and now it's a mixture of nickel and something else. Our coins are really worthless. Our paper is really worthless if you look at it, just the paper itself. What is backing up their currency right now, at least in my estimation, is the illusion of its power, not the gold behind it, not the land or the gold. It's just the good faithfulness of the credit. So our military strength, our economic power, our status in America, all of that's what's backing up the dollar. Does that make sense? Like that's why people want it, is because it's the business currency. But
Sure.
there's nothing really backing it up as far as like gold or silver or something precious metal or something that's worth physically that we can exchange for it. So that creates a real problem. So what happens when the whole world says, well, I just really don't care for the dollar anymore?
Well, I don't I don't think they say that, but along the lines of your concern, isn't most of our society built on the perception of value?
Well, yeah, that's the house of cards we're in, right? That's the
That is
you're
that is a model of capitalism and development and growth.
yeah,
How do you
it's
perceive what it is that I'm doing and that you're doing, or the value of something in the marketplace?
I remember my global economy professor at Winona State made this kind of known to us. because he posed the question, what makes the US dollar so worthy, so valuable, right? And his answer was that because everybody wants it. As long as everybody wants it, then yeah, it's valuable. But and so what do you do? You decrease it so that people want it more, and you increase it, and that's all we're doing is we're just printing money left and right, and there's nothing to really back it up. Once the world says, "Hey, I want the EU currency," I want the come on, what is it's messing with me. The euro.
The
I want
euro.
the euro.
Yeah.
I want the euro. And really interesting thing, and you can tell there's a bit of a switch happening with this kind of globalist idea for currency or value for currency is you watch some of the movies that were coming out in like 2016, 17, 18, and instead of wanting like everything was about, $1 million, right? You'll pay me $1 million. The Austin Powers,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you watch these movies, I remember watching, I think it was a Mission Impossible or one of them that was saying, "Oh, you want $1 billion? I can't give you $1 billion." Oh, no, I remember the movie now. It was Noah's Ark. You remember that John Cusack and I think it's John Cusack came out and the whole world's going to flood again, and they made these arcs to get on. You know what I'm saying? And to get on the
Jason, I
ark.
don't watch those kind of movies. I just
You're
stay
just
with the
not
Bible.
you're just not dispensational enough.
There's not enough conspiracy for.
Yeah. So, anyways, to get on the ark, you have to pay this money, right? And so the guy was like, "It's going to cost you $1 billion." He's like, $1 billion, and the guy who was taking the money is like, "No, I said €1 billion." And the emphasis he was trying to make there was, "I don't want your American currency, I want your euros, right? I want the euro." The point he was trying to make in the movie was the debasement or the devaluing of the dollar and the exceptional quality of the euro. That's all perception. That's people. I want this over that. So what happens when the world says, "I don't want your money anymore. I don't want your currency"? Well, the U.S. does not have a bunch of gold to back up its currency. It just says, "Hey, trust us. We're good for it," and we have
Yeah,
been good for it.
and I think even if you're not a student of economics, it should concern you that as you're watching these trends, Spain, Russia, France, the depletion of their currency, actual backing of their currency is a cultural trend that should be concerning. Now,
Yeah.
what do you perceive to be the value of alternative currencies like Venmo, Cash App, PayPal? Is that a good trend?
No, I'm scared to death of those.
Because
It,
I literally
I
had some people last night who came by my table, merch table, and they were just like, "Hey, how do we pay? You take cash? Oh yeah, absolutely take cash. What about credit card? Yeah, scan a credit card. What is this PayPal and this Venmo?" And now I know we've had it for a while, but listen, I travel around places where there's different people technology wise. But it's like, yeah, you just scan it, you click the link, and then from your bank it'll just take the money. Should I be concerned about that? Pointing
I
people in that direction?
me personally, I think going digital at all is going to be something that it's going to contribute to the stages that we're seeing. How about that? The tightening of the government, the corruption, because you got to remember, at least with cash, there's a transaction taking place. I'm taking money out of my wallet, I'm giving it to you, you're giving me your item. In
Yeah,
the digital world, there's no real, it's just numbers that's going back and forth.
exactly.
And then on top of that, the government gets to really take a look at it, everything that you're doing, and the banks now have power to tell you what you can spend money on, what you can't spend money on, because they hold the digital currency and they hold your numbers. At least right now, we have to put money in a bank, and the banks give us money back.
Well, and to that point, people should know, sort of the younger generations, this whole concept of a bank and actually having something in the bank is a little bit of a foreign problem. I mean, it's a problem because my son got a job this summer, was working for an employer who wanted to pay him, write a check out to him and deposit it in the bank. Well, he didn't have a bank account. And I've heard several people, even people that I've toured with before, they're just like, hey, I'm going to write you a check, deposit this in the bank. And they're like, we don't have a bank.
Yeah.
And so that's not just automatic that the younger generations are going to have currency in a bank
Yeah.
and those kind
Yeah.
of transfer systems that are in place. And so
So all of that's going to, I think, lead to what's going to be the value of the currency then? I mean, how are you going to determine its worth if it's digital?
well, it goes back to what
Again,
you're
it has to
talking
be
about.
by
Trust me, it's
trust
there.
me, we're good for it,
We're good.
and we all
It's
want it
there.
or don't want it. Yeah, so his second point is, I think, is good, is spot on.
All right, let's see what his third
The
point is.
debasement of the currency.
Stage
Yes.
3, debt spiral. The United States owes 36 trillion. That's
It's
120%
actually
of
38
GDP.
trillion now.
Okay, updated
A little
numbers. This
behind, yeah.
just in. We owe 38 trillion.
$38 trillion. Yeah. Well, I think we pay like $1 million and trillion or trillion in interest a year or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
We're
it's big.
That number's 38 trillion. Let's continue.
38 trillion.
Interest payments alone are approaching $1
Yeah,
trillion
there you go.
per year.
Yep.
We're spending more on interest than on defense. We run deficits every year. $1.8 trillion in 2024 in a growing economy. During peacetime, we borrow to pay interest on previous borrowing. That's the definition of a debt spiral. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed until it collapsed. The USSR ran out of money. We're on the same path. Check.
Yeah, this is a problem. Oh, come on. I'm thinking of the Thomas Sowell. You familiar with Thomas Sowell?
Am I
He's a
familiar with
guy.
Thomas Sowell?
He's a guy. If we're going to
The
throw a
greatest-
black
One of the
economist,
greatest. Don't say. The black guy that's an
yeah,
economist.
the black guy who knows the one black
He's
guy
one-
who knows how to run the economy.
Just bow. All right. He's one of the greatest economists ever.
He is.
Black, white, green, orange. Just give
Yeah.
that man his respect. Put some
Listen.
flowers on that man.
He couldn't catch a football, but he can throw some numbers around. So
I don't
he's
know
good.
what he could do. He's 91 years old, but he's still sharp as
No,
a
he
tack.
is-
I watched an interview a couple of months ago, and I was like, "That's Thomas Sowell,
Yeah,
not just
he is.
longevity."
He
but-
is. He's amazing. He's probably one of the brightest men I've ever listened to.
Adept. So yes,
mean-
if you don't know who Thomas Sowell is, find some Thomas
Yeah.
Sowell and just listen to all of it.
I like one of his quotes. He says, "The first lesson of economics is scarcity. The first lesson of politics is to ignore the first lesson of economics." I was like, "Yes, that is Sowellian economics right there."
Sowellian. I
Yeah,
love that
Sowellian.
foray into humor that Thomas Sowell
Yeah.
can often jump into.
Well,
But yeah, give
and,
us some Thomas
another-
Sowell. What does Thomas Sowell have to say about this?
Yeah. Another a guy who's not read anymore, and I never read him in high school, and I didn't really hear much of him until I listened to some of the Charlie Kirk stuff. Milton Friedman, right?
I've heard him talk a lot about him.
Okay, so he says that the major error of the welfare state is to assume that the government can spend without consequence, and it never dawned on me until I heard a Middle Eastern banker. And this is something I didn't know happened, but like foreign countries buy up our debt. And so we owe these foreign countries money.
Yeah, we do.
Because they buy
Yeah,
American
we do,
debt,
folks.
okay? And I remember him doing an interview once, and he got on there and said, "Listen, there's coming a day of reckoning for the Americans."
Are you trying to say it in an
Going to-
accent?
Huh?
Were you saying it in an Indian accent?
Can I say it in an Indian accent?
No, I thought you were saying it in an Indian
No,
accent.
no. This guy's Middle Eastern. But thank you. Come
I
again.
was gonna say, what kind of show is this?
Yes. No, but he said there's going to come a day, and I didn't realize at the time, this was 20 years ago, that I didn't realize that foreign countries were buying up our debt, and we owe these foreign countries all this money. And he
Jason,
said,
don't tell the people that. They don't. A lot of
One
people don't
day-
know that.
it's going to come to a reckoning, and you're going to have to pay up. You just can't keep spending without consequence. No home, no family, just at the smallest micro level can survive on debt. You can't. It kills everybody.
yeah, and those subsidiary units,
Yep.
from the larger to the smaller, from the family to the federal level, it's sort of a cultural cancer, if you will, because we watch the government do it, spend the money over here. We'll spend the money over there. We'll do. We'll get the money back. We'll just keep
Yeah.
growing different things in our economy, and our economy will take care of it. Well, we're
Yep.
watching that does not actually take place, but it even filters down to the family level where, well, let's just get another credit card. Well, let's just get
Yeah.
another credit card.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's just take out more debt and living above your means. It's a killer to every family. It's a killer to every community. And it's a killer to every nation, even ours.
Okay, so at the beginning of this, you caused everybody's shoulders to slump back down and think, okay, we're good. It's not as bad as we're talking about here because his numbers, his facts, his figures are off. We got the strongest military. Man, I felt good there for a minute. My heart started pumping, and I was like, yes, proud to be an American. Like there's some Lee Greenwood. I mean, it was great there for a couple of moments, and now we got into some of these economic situations where we're going, yeah, that is kind of true.
Well, one feeds the other, right? If we don't have the money, we can't keep feeding our military. Things are good as long as the money's there. If the money's not there, then the
The
military.
money's getting funny.
The
in
money's
America.
getting funny, and if it's not there, we're in a bind.
Well, let's see if we're doing any better here.
Yeah.
Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. America doesn't make things anymore. We design, we finance, we consume, but we don't produce. Our manufacturing base has been gutted, shipped to China, Mexico, Vietnam. We import $800 billion.
This was Trump's running platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was one of the reasons why Donald Trump got elected, was because he recognized that previous administrations, I mean, both conservative and liberal, by the way, has outsourced all of our manufacturing, and so his big thing is let's bring it back. That's the motive behind his tariffs. That's the motives behind making America great again, is make us producers of something. We've got to be contributing that to our economy and not just consuming. So on that front, that's why one of the reasons why President Trump was elected, because this is a problem. We consume much more than we produce. Just think about the consumption of oil, right? So under President Biden, he was really big about importing oil, and President Trump would contend that we have plenty of oil here. Why aren't we manufacturing that oil? Well, it's two different ways of thinking about the economy, right? I mean, President Biden was committed to a globalist outsourcing economy, and President Trump is committed to a more, and I'm going to say isolationist, but he's not an isolationist, but he's more of a domestic producer, right? And so this is a problem. I mean, it's been a problem for a long time, which is why you've had campaigns about buy from America, right? American-made stuff. It's to try to keep our economy in house, that we're producing things.
This is an interesting thing because I wonder if, because there's actual hard data that is related to this subject matter, if we could have more of a civil discussion with those maybe more left-leaning who would look at this particular issue of supply, American supplies being shipped out, manufacturing being lessened in America, as an active force to try to reverse this trend in America, where you could actually have a civil conversation with somebody who doesn't necessarily believe in, or is this just a lost cause? Are we going to fight about this as well? Because this is one of those things where, even though you and I have both been critical of Donald Trump and various other areas, this is one in which I think this is absolutely just common sense. You just cannot ship everything out to everybody else and then be so dependent on other people being able to do for you. I mean, this doesn't make sense on a subsidiary level. It doesn't make sense on a national level. We've got to have manufacturing. We've got to have resources here.
Got to have jobs.
Jobs here,
people got to be able to work.
Valuation in America, and not just depend on foreign sources. Because when those debts get called, I mean, like the interviewer here is talking about here, this is a domino effect. They're all going to bump up against one another.
Right.
And when those debts get called, and when those trillions and trillions of dollars continue to increase, and we need more and more and more and more, that puts us at a very vulnerable position. Hopefully everybody can recognize that. Can we all just get along on that point?
Well, you're going to see, and what I'm assuming one of his points has got to be like social decay or something, but you're going to see that this is going to be a sticking point. The
He actually didn't do a great job in this one on social decay, but so we'll talk more about that one.
Yeah. But Donald Trump with his tariffs, just for instance, I don't know what the numbers are right now. I just remember back in like March and April when he first started, he had brought in like an extra $17 billion into the economy with those tariffs. And it was kind of going up from there on. And I haven't looked at the current numbers, but his whole idea is to get this money back in the United States, to get manufacturing back, to get us being producers again, because he's trying to combat this right here. He's trying to deal with this particular issue.
We might have a jumping off point from this point because I think two of these points are actually the same thing, but we'll look at it.
Dollars more than we export annually. We're dependent on foreign supply chains for everything: medicine, electronics, steel, even military components. Just like Spain became dependent on imports.
Yeah. Now the problem with this though is everybody's dependent on those supply chains. I mean, that's the globalist world we've made. So this isn't just an American problem. This is a Western. This is anybody who's advanced. The shipping lanes, the logistics. I mean, we're all dependent. Like everyone's connected this way. We just got to be more producing than we are dependent. I think that's the fair.
And honestly, that's why we keep an eye on China.
Yeah,
because they seem to have more of those components in place.
And they're creating more of them. I mean, they're going
alliances
after
and
Africa
things got
and South
weird.
America. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be able to put together momentum in a way that we would not be able to.
Yep.
Imports while the silver flowed out. We're dependent on imports while dollars flow out. And just like Spain, when the money stops flowing, we're in trouble. Check. Stage 5, social decay.
We did get
Trust in institutions is at all-time lows. Crime is rising. Homelessness is exploding. Drug overdoses kill 100,000 Americans annually. The best and brightest are leaving or checking out. Fertility rates are collapsing. Political dysfunction is...
Oh, I just want to say a quick note about that one. Both parties in the last 2 elections, I believe, have recognized that as a running point on their campaign that needs to be addressed, is how do we incentivize a fertility rate that is declining? Because all the economic discussions, we could have that all day long. Military discussion, strength, trading, supply, demand, we can talk about that all day long. If you don't have enough people to sustain your society, you're going down.
And then
we're
the
going down,
is
bro.
coming up because you have nobody left. Spain, I'll tell you what, you want to watch a country that is literally suffering from infertility problems. Look at Spain. Look at the turn that's happening in Spain, from the locals to the influx of immigrants, particularly in the Muslim world. That is such a case study to watch what happens when families stop having children, and what happens to your culture. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Dr. Michael Haken, who is a historian at Southern Seminary, first exposed me to the idea of what happens when civilizations stop having children and fertility rates and things like that. And he was looking at Spain as just one prime example of what not to do. They used to have large families, and now they're down to like, I don't know if it's I don't know how you have 1.5 children, but something like that. You have something down where they're not having, and the culture that's coming in is having like 6 children. You know what I'm saying? So it's like 6 to 1. Well, in 20, 30 years, you're turning over real fast.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about this that struck me about the social decay is the crime, the poverty, and the political dysfunction. I think that is, in the last 10 years, has been the dominant themes that we have seen in our media in America. Is this increase in poverty, crime, and political dysfunction, that this is overwhelming to us. I can't imagine sitting down across the table from, say, a progressive leftist and them disagreeing that we don't have high crime, poverty, and political dysfunction at an all-time high right now, at least in our lifetime. political dysfunction has always been a part of America's makeup, but we've been able to resolve it peacefully. That's what's kind of made America cool. It seems like right now,
You didn't want to say make America great?
yeah, this political dysfunction is not resolving peacefully as it used to. Like there seems to be a real severance that's happening. This is what I think makes the stages worrisome right now, is that I think there's a reality that all of us can look at right now, and see that this stage looks really familiar to us right now.
That's
And
why
it
I left the
seems to be
political
getting,
dysfunction up there.
yeah, I think this one right here is everyone can look and say we are a divided, polarized country. Where there are two nations living in one nation right now, and everybody knows somewhere in their soul this can't work, because it doesn't work at even the family level. If you
Mhm.
have two people who are married together, and yes, they're married, but they're not married, they're roommates, they're something else,
Mm.
eventually that house
He
breaks up
took it
and
to the
divorces,
counseling level.
right? That it just happens, and at some kind of nuclear or molecular level, we know America cannot continue being roommates with each other.
Yeah.
We can't. And so I think this one, I think hits home to the people and to the church more than anything right now, aside, because right now our pockets are not as steep as they, America votes with their checkbook, but I'm still going to go home and put food on the table and do fine. When that happens, I think you're really going to see some of these other things come up. But this one right here, I think, slaps you in the face and causes you to stop for a second and look.
Yeah. And we keep moving through that.
Total.
Yeah.
We can't agree on anything, can't fix anything, can't build anything. The signs of decay are everywhere, but everyone pretends it's fine. It's not fine. Check. We're on stage 5 of 7. The Soviet Union made it to stage 5 before complete collapse. So did Britain. Spain lasted longer, but the pattern is the same. We're not at the end yet, but we're deep into the sequence. Stage 6 is loss of reserve currency status. That's when allies start diversifying, when trade moves to other currencies, when the dollar comes flooding back home because no one needs to hold it anymore. We're seeing
We
early
talked about
signs.
that with our iconic, that when they want the euros over the dollar, so to speak, that's what
Mhm.
he's talking about right there.
Yep.
BRICS nations developing alternatives, central banks buying gold, China and Russia trading in yuan and rubles, Saudi Arabia accepting yuan for oil. The cracks are forming. Stage 7 is collapse, not gradual decline, sudden implosion. The Soviet
Sudden implosion.
Well, you and I were alive when the Soviet Union collapsed. We saw that, right? I mean, 1989.
Mr.
Berlin Wall came
Gorbachev,
down. Gorbachev tear
tear
that wall
down
down.
this wall.
Yep,
I remember it,
yep.
or at least I remember
And
seeing
it
over
seemed
and
it
over
was
again.
sudden. I mean, it was quick. I mean, years. All of a sudden, within a couple of years, the Soviet Union's dismantled. Countries were being formed. The states, Soviet states were broken apart. I mean, this wasn't like it took forever to do. It was quick. Can you imagine like what that would look like in the United States? The states start to break up in their own countries or regions like they are over in
Well,
Russia.
yeah, I was going to say, well, let me just be speculative for just a few moments, because I think that you raise a good point, and it's one that I've discussed. I've got a live audience here today, so be on my P's and Q's today. But it's one that I've discussed with friends and people who are concerned about the exchange between politics and the church, talking about Christian nationalism, throwing all these different terms that are out there. We are so divided in our country politically on these issues that it seems like the dominant strategy, if you wanted to cause the culture to absolutely go into chaos, would of necessity be, I'm just not going to agree with you upon anything, just in an irrational manner. I'm not going to agree with you about infertility. I'm not going to agree with you about the economy. I'm not going to agree with you about manufacturing. I'm not going to agree with you about drug overdose and the problems that we have here in America. And it's almost illogical that you would not want to find some common place where we can figure out a better way forward for America. But I honestly believe that people digging their heels in is the catalyst to cultural collapse. And so what do you do in that situation, Jason, where there are people who don't want to agree because they want to see the society collapse and then remade in the image that they are propagating for people. Oh, if we remake the society, we can make it better for you, when in actuality it's going to hurt everybody.
Well, that on a human level, that feels hopeless because when you come against obstinance, I'm just not going to agree with you. That's how it's going to happen. Then what does man do? I mean, what's history shown us? Well, in France, they got the guillotines out and they slaughtered 40-some thousand people
Off with their heads.
off with their heads. Russia, I mean, when
The Bolshevik Revolution.
not Stalin, who's the guy before Lenin? Lenin got in there, and you're talking between Lenin and Stalin, millions of people. Like once you say that, what you say right there, the only response we have in our fallen condition is, well, I'm just going to eradicate you. I'm just going to eliminate the problem that way. I feel like that's becoming a more accepted worldview in America than it ever has before. And I think you saw it in the Charlie Kirk assassination when you had people applauding his death. And it wasn't just a handful of people. It was a big group of people. We gave a number. I can't remember exactly what it was. 40-some percent, 50-some percent of the progressive left said that it might be acceptable to use violence to get your point across. Something like that. 45%. I think it's up there. I know it's in the 40s for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Said that it was completely acceptable to use violence. Right? Now, I'm sure there are plenty of conservatives out there who are probably thinking the same thing. But anytime that worldview is adopted and believe that we can, well, if I can't get you to agree with me, then I'll either put you in jail or I'll kill you. We are in, talk about social decline, talk about imploding. That's where we are. If that's the worldview we're going to hold to. So on a human level, that feels hopeless. That feels discouraging. And that's why I think the church has to, the church, Wayne Grudem, I think, said something kind of controversial, but I think he's right on it. He said, when Christians abandon cultural influence, they're not being humble, they're being disobedient. And I think he's right? Because if the church does not begin to engage the culture with the right worldview to help some of these folks understand there's a better way to live, there's a better way to do this, there's a better way to find life, then we're left to our total depravity. We're left to our, remember, we're good Reformed Baptists, whatever we're going to call us. Total depravity is a real thing. And you left, I mean, the heart is desperately wicked. Who can understand it?
Yeah.
You give the imagination frustration and opportunity, and you're going to get violence. And so we have to be about reform. Psalm 11:3, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Right? You have to go and rebuild. You have to build the foundation from the ground up. You have to be salt and light in a decaying world. You have to be the light. Who hides their light under a lamp or under a table or under a basket? Nobody, right? We have to be the people who tell the world there's a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And there's a way to live that's better. And so retrieving into your own little world is not the answer for the church. I can tell you that. As hard as it is to live now. So, like I said, you asked the question, what do you do? And I say, well, on the human level, it feels hopeless and discouraging. The only, I think, answer to this is the gospel has to go forth, and we have to be that voice.
Well, that was kind of a way forward takeaway. Or did you have more on the way forward takeaway?
Do I have more on the way forward takeaway?
In terms of what you wanted to call the church to today?
Yeah. Well, I think yes.
Well, let me do mine then, so you can come back and you can sum it up.
Okay.
All right. These are some takeaways for the church. We have these discussions because we want to create the atmosphere where we can have these discussions, and then we give some takeaways, albeit pastoral, cultural, observational, in terms of ways that we might be able to move forward this week. This week, you can take what it is that we're saying and put that into practice in your life. Way forward.
Government officials insist that
I'll go. In the Bible, it tells us to do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be being transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable will of God. I turn to Romans there because I think that that's a good litmus test for us to be able to say the world has a particular pattern, has a particular cycle, it has a particular way of handling things and situations that are often at odds with the kingdom of God and our advance of the kingdom of God and our expression of how we go about making disciples. With that in mind, I'm mindful of the fact that there might be some people who listen to us today and they begin to be a little bit apprehensive and fearful about the fact that we may be on the verge of a cultural collapse. I want to remind you that historically speaking, as the Lord is sovereign, all of those nations that are talked about, there's been and continues to be in some places a incredible gospel witness there. And so where society has collapsed and where societies fall, I believe, or are falling, I believe those are great opportunities for us to live in the moment of those opportunities. There's a drug problem. Well, we can live in the light of the opportunity that's there for the church to be able to expand their ministries and expand the horizons that they have to be able to address some of those things, because those are not just problems, those are actually people. We have problems that are related to economic situations. Well, that affects families, and it does cause even friends of mine that I know to be just almost on the verge of being evicted from their homes. Well, those are not problems so much as they are people, so much as they are opportunities for us to be able to minister in the generation that we live in. And so when we see problems, even problems where we disagree with one another and can't seem to see eye to eye on even basic society and political issues, it does present an opportunity for us not to just talk about solving problems, but connecting people. And that's what we're uniquely adept and gifted to be able to do by the power of the Holy Spirit, to create community, to build into people's lives. Hopefully we're taking every opportunity to do that as we see that in the culture that's around us. Hopefully that begins with your involvement in your local church and how you appropriate your gifts, talents, and abilities in the local church, and how you are under the discipleship and tutelage of qualified elders who will lead you in the process of building that community, both in your own family, but then also as it extends for the purpose of the Great Commission. And so I'll pause and cede my words now so that Jason can come back for his way forward takeaway.
government officials insist
So my takeaway for the church would be to view these stages. I think Erskine was spot on that there are patterns to what's going on in human history, and you can see them. And I think this is one of those patterns. And you have to kind of say, okay, how do I look at the world? Through what lens do I look at the world? And I think there's two sets of glasses, if you will. One, through a biblical theological lens, you need to understand a couple of things. Number one, total depravity explains why the governments and the economies and revolutions always decay, because sin corrodes every human institution. That's a bottom line. What man builds up eventually will fall, because the world is cursed with sin. Sin leads to death, and we are living in a world where you're going to see patterns and stages of sin that just affects at every level: family, community, government, and whatnot. So number one, you've got to understand total depravity. Number two, you've got to understand God's providence. You have to understand that history is not chaotic. It's covenantal. It's moving towards something. God ordains all rulers, right? Romans 13, 1-4. But he also removes kings and raises up others, Daniel 2:21. God is sovereign over the affairs of man. So even though man is completely depraved, God is absolutely sovereign, and he is working out his redemptive history. And so we can know that this is all moving toward an end. So the second lens, if you see that that's the biblical theology side of things, man's total depravity, God is absolutely sovereign. You also have to look in light of redemptive history. You have to look at the pattern of revolution is a human pattern. The pattern of God is redemptive. It's divine. It brings life. If you think about Babel's rebellion led to dispersion, but Pentecost reverses that and leads to unity under Christ. That is God's way of doing things. Early kingdoms will rise and fall, but God promises a kingdom that will last forever. That's redemptive history, right? And we are called to live in that redemptive history right now and remind ourselves that even though man is fallen and broken and sinful and will create institutions that are corrupt and will fall eventually, God is working all things for our good. He's working it for our redemption. He has sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die, to rise from the grave, to ascend into heaven, to pour out his spirit upon those who call upon him, and to come back one day and restore all things underneath the rule of Christ. And we got to keep that as our focus. With that as our focus, I believe you can now go out and do profound, radical ministry. You could do things like look at people not as look at problems and like what Erskine said, look at the people, not just the problems. You can begin to look at real solutions that provide the right worldview to find life. You could do crazy things like start a school in a rural community to help people know the wise way of living and to know abundant life. You could do all kinds of cool things that can stop the stages that are happening and be that influence. But you got to do it with the right lens, and you have to do it empowered by the Spirit, and you have to do it with the right future in mind, that God is going to restore all things. And that would be my takeaway for the church.
We have come to the end of this episode. Don't miss a final word from Erskine.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of the Erskine Music Podcast experience. To all of our guests that come on the show and for all of our sponsors, thank you guys so much for being a part of it. And for you who listen to the show, you and I, we make this thing happen by simply being kind to one another in the comment section and then going as followers of Christ and living this thing out. If anybody needs more information, erskinemusic.com is where you start, and then all the nonsense starts, all the social media that's out there. But let's go live it out. See you guys very soon.